Coming up on the NBA Rundown, I've got my 2-week checkpoint for your National Basketball Association power rankings. That means we get to talk about Doc's bad Bucks. OKC, as you all know, is scary good. I think what we have with the Los Angeles Lakers at this point is average Lakers. And the Warriors actually have the deepest bench, surprisingly, in the National Basketball Association. I've got all of that and a whole lot more coming up on the NBA Rundown tonight. Hey, listen, new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. And of course, like this video. I would also love to know who you have in your top 10 National Basketball Association teams through 2 weeks. Now, we are going to break this into the top 10, which I'm going to cover for you in just a second, but we have to do the others. And the others in the NBA this year, I'm going to break this down in just to a couple quick pieces before we dive into the top 10. Now, I brought up the Doc's bad Bucks, and I have to say, since Mike Budenholzer left, this Milwaukee Bucks team has been, quite frankly, pretty bad. I thought Doc Rivers should have rode off into the sunset, played golf 2 times a day, and showed up occasionally about a half hour before the start of his ESPN ABC broadcast. But instead, Doc took the phone call, and the Milwaukee Bucks have been bad ever since. Look, I don't want to blame Doc Rivers on this entirely. I mean, hell, this Milwaukee Bucks team is actually owned by a Haslam, and we know what the Haslams did with Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns at this point. So this Milwaukee Bucks organization is a team in utter disarray. And if I were Giannis, I would be looking for a brand new zip code at this point. Now, in terms of some of the others in the National Basketball Association, these are the teams that didn't break into the top 10 this particular week. Just a couple thoughts on National Basketball Association relegation. Keontae George is playing great for the Utah Jazz. And then that's where we stop. This Utah Jazz organization is a complete mess, but I think they are a mess on purpose. In the same way, the Oklahoma City Thunder were a mess for a very long time. I'm still not sure exactly what the path to success actually looks like for Utah at this point, but if there was a team in the NBA right now that you'd be happy you didn't have to watch the rest of the season, of course, it would be the Utah Jazz. To relegation, go the Jazz. There are some other teams which are on the doorsteps of relegation, but I don't want to quite put them there yet. The Washington Wizards certainly fall into that we're close to relegation, but we're not there yet. And one of the reasons I don't want to do that is this Washington Wizards team actually plays pretty hard. They've got 2 wins, 4 losses, and to be honest, I've been fairly impressed. A lot of people have ripped on Alex Sarr a lot already this season, but I mean, as far as this draft class of rookies go, he might be having one of the best starts to the season so far amongst all the rookies. 9.8 points a game, 7 boards, not bad for a 7-footer who's essentially finding his feet in the NBA. Look, the Wizards will stop playing hard when Kyle Kuzma actually gets back. I can tell you that. So those are some of the other teams I wanted to talk about. 2 last teams on the others before we dive into the top 10. First of all, the Detroit Pistons. Congrats to the Pistons. They have 3 wins against 5 losses. They've been playing very hard all season. The coaching staff has it right. They're playing Jaden Ivey a lot. He's actually averaging just under 20 points a game at this point. I love what Detroit is trying to do. I'm not saying Detroit's going to make the play-in this year, but they are a vastly improved team, and certainly a better coaching staff is in place with that team right now. Other than that, we all know about what's happening with Joel Embiid being suspended by the NBA, Paul George came back, nearly won a game against the Phoenix Suns the other night, but the Phoenix still held on to win it. At this point, the Philadelphia 76ers are a team that I would be very worried about, especially if and when Joel Embiid comes back and is still sort of hurt. Like, they need Joel Embiid to at the very least be a mid-level playoff team in a weaker Eastern Conference compared to the Western Conference. I feel bad for the New Orleans Pelicans with all the injuries. Still, they're 3-5. And the Memphis Grizzlies as well, who also have a lot of injuries, but they're 4-4. And I absolutely love what Ja Morant has done so far this season. We know about the Orlando Magic and the big injury there with Paulo. The Sacramento Kings are sort of where they've been for the last 24 months. And the Houston Rockets are the team I would keep a close eye on as this season actually progresses. Now, I don't know if the Houston Rockets are going to do what a lot of people suspect they're going to do, which is actually trade for somebody, a la a potential Giannis deal, or maybe they bring in a disgruntled Jimmy Butler. But Houston is definitely a team I would keep a close eye on. To the National Basketball Association rundown top 10. Once again, go ahead and drop in your comments when you have a chance. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, please go ahead and subscribe. Okay, so I'm pulling up my top 10 list for you right now. And in at number 10 is sort of, if you will, an honorable mention one, which is Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. I know Jamal Murray hasn't looked like himself for, I want to say, almost a year and a half. I'm assuming those things are going to get turned around. We know that Michael Porter Jr. is fantastic. We'll love Aaron Gordon, and Brown is playing with a lot of heart. The problem is that their bench isn't really deep enough at this point. I'm sure there will be a small move or two made to help shore those things up. But the Joker's just so good night in and night out, and I couldn't, with good conscience, 2 weeks into the season, not have the Joker in the top 10. In at number 9 is my Minnesota Timberwolves. We know that Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo are still finding their feet with the T-Wolves. They apparently appear to have lost or forgotten how to play team defense, and I think that's just a question of those two getting involved with the way Chris Finch actually wants to play defense. The Timberwolves as a whole, I think, will be just fine. I think you have to give them about a quarter of a season to bring these new pieces in. You have to remember the way Julius Randle plays is different than how Karl Anthony Towns plays. And it's certainly, you've got to factor in Anthony Edwards' desire to shoot more threes, the coaching staff's desire to have him shoot more threes, and the fact that they haven't really played their rookie too much in Rob Dillingham is a little disturbing for me as a Timberwolves fan. Still 4-3 and in the top 10 at number 9. In at number 8, reluctantly, the Los Angeles Lakers. Look, I think J.J. Redick as coach of the year after his first 3 wins, those discussions have certainly faded away at this point, haven't they? Look, LeBron James and Anthony Davis are both very dangerous basketball players. We know that LeBron James occasionally is going to take a night off on his ski down the backside of Career Mountain and spend some time at the chalet that's midway down the hill. And we've seen a lot more of that over the last couple of years, the phantom LeBron James injuries. Look, LeBron is great for the league. He's been great since he's been in the league. He'll be great until he leaves the league. He'll be great probably as a owner of a team, most likely in Las Vegas as well. I like this Los Angeles Lakers roster. I think they've got to figure out how to play Dalton Connect a little bit more. I think they also need to figure out how to get Cam Reddish back into the rotation. And who the hell knows what's going to happen with Jackson Hayes and that horrible video of him and his girlfriend from 3 years ago, which surfaced a couple days ago. In at number 7, the New York Knicks. Look, I think this Knicks team, plays obviously in a weaker Eastern Conference. I believe in Jalen Brunson. I certainly believe in Tom Thibodeau as a head coach. I think they will figure things out. They will figure things out. It will take a little bit of time. I think losing Dante DiVincenzo is a huge piece that I think the organization probably misstepped on. To do it over again, I certainly think they would love to have Dante back on this team. And I'm not a huge Mikal Bridges fan, just in terms of the role that they're currently using him. They'll figure this stuff out. The Knicks will be fine. Currently have them in the top 10. In at number 6 is the Dallas Mavericks. Less to do with Klay Thompson, though Klay Thompson has been a good addition to the team, certainly. It's not old Klay Thompson. It's sort of end of career Klay Thompson at this point, but he still can help spread the court out, which is exactly what the Dallas Mavericks like to do. Also, the additions that they made at the trading deadline with Daniel Gafford and a couple of the other moves they made are paying dividends this year as well. Remember, the Dallas Mavericks are one of those teams, as great as Kyrie Irving is, as great as Luka Doncic can be night in and night out. They are actually one of these teams that can play in multiple ways. They can beat you with their big people, and they can beat you with their spread offense. It is a fun team to watch. I know they've lost 3 games already, but they're 4-3 and definitely one of the 10 best teams in the NBA. Now, for the surprise of the year, we have to come here to the Bay Area, where Steph Curry, who's missed 3 of the first 7 games for the Warriors, and yet this Warrior team is actually 6-1 at this point. And you might be wondering, how is that possible? Now, Steve Kerr is actually playing a 12-player rotation. I hate to use the word rotation when talking about 12 players, but if you go take a look at the box stats from the first 7 games, that's exactly what you'll see. If you were to talk to Steve Kerr, he will tell you that this is the deepest roster he's ever had. Now, I disagree with Steve Kerr, and I'm sure Steve Kerr doesn't really believe that, but in terms of the strategy and the way they're actually playing with such a deep roster, it is something that teams will adjust to. They won't, continue to win at this pace, especially not over the next week. They've got a slew of tough games, which actually begins tonight in Boston, but they still are, for me, at this point, hands down the biggest surprise in the NBA. And a special shout out to Jerry Stackhouse on his job that he's doing. Chris DeMarco as well, who's one of the assistant coaches for the Golden State Warriors. Both of them have really helped shore up the Warriors' defense to this point. As I mentioned, there will be adjustments made by other teams throughout the season. They'll have to adjust when those adjustments actually come down. But for now, their defense has been very good. And a big part of defense in the NBA is actually just getting your players to actually do it. When you have somebody like Jerry Stackhouse talking to you about it, and you have such a deep rotation of 12 players, and those minutes can go away quickly if you're not actually playing defense, I think the point has been made with this particular roster. Once again, a tough week in front of them, so we'll see where they land, but definitely the biggest surprise in the NBA so far. I talked about Mike Budenholzer a little bit earlier. I always butcher his name. Hell of a coach. Just look at how good the Phoenix Suns have been so far with him as their head coach versus what they had last season. Look, other than Tyus Edney, how different is this particular roster? Excuse me, Tyus Jones. How different is this particular roster over last year? Really, it's like 2 or 3 different players. They've got the nice young rookie who's actually playing really well. We know that Bradley Beal, when healthy, is a really nice addition to this Phoenix Suns team as well. I have them in right now as number 4. In at number 3, and I could have put them in at number 1. I could have put them in at number 2. But I think at this point, to be fair, I'm putting the Cleveland Cavaliers in at number 3 at 8-0. Coaching matters in the NBA. It absolutely matters. I mean, even Darius Garland and the Spider are actually sort of getting along. Last time I checked, Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley are not requesting trades at this point. Trust me when I say this. Kenny Atkinson has made a difference with this team. Will it hold? Who knows? But for now, number 3 in the NBA is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they've absolutely earned it across the board. In at number 2 is the Boston Celtics. Love what the Celtics are doing to this point. Look, they're going to lose, 2 out of every 10 games. This is one of the best teams in the NBA, will be one of the best teams, will most likely have the most wins at the end of the season as well, assuming there are no major injuries. In tonight's game, you'll have a little bit of revenge on the mind of a particular player, if you know what I mean. Jason Tatum is certainly going to have it in for Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors for what Kerr actually did to him on the USA basketball team. For those of you that don't remember, basically Kerr did not have a 12-player rotation with the USA basketball team, and the odd man out oftentimes was not Derek White. It was actually Jason Tatum, and Tatum, while he won't say it publicly, was absolutely bitter, and you could expect a huge game out of Tatum tonight. I think anything less would be uncivilized as far as I'm concerned. All right, I had to get that Old Spice commercial in there. And in at number 1, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Look, OKC has been a very good basketball team to this point, and we know that they've done everything right. They've drafted well. They've got Chet Holmgren. They have SGA. They brought over Alex Caruso. Carson Wallace is getting more minutes now as well. It is a team that is totally loaded at this point, and I absolutely love what this team has done with regards to the rest of the league. Look, Williams, SGA, it's just, J-Dub scoring 23 points in one night, and then you've got SGA having an off night scoring 21, and yet they easily take down the Orlando Magic on Monday night. It will be interesting to see how this team plays the rest of the week as their schedule gets a little tougher, but clearly, without a doubt, the best team in the NBA through the first 2 weeks, through our 2-week checkpoint, is OKC. All right. I want to know what your thoughts are. Please go ahead and drop your comments in. Very interesting. It's going to be a very, very interesting week. And I think what we'll see in the next 2 weeks is some of those other teams move up, and like a Houston Rockets, they'll be in the top 10 at some point. We'll see Sacramento in the top 10 at some point. If the Pelicans could ever get healthy, we might see them. San Antonio, while I still don't think they have enough depth, will be on the verge of the top 10 at some point. And then there'll be the teams that, quite frankly, just won't come anywhere close. Anyways, that's what I've got for you today. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're catching this on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe, and of course, like this video. If you're catching this on any of the podcast networks that we're on across the world, please go ahead and forward it on to your friends. The show's growing nicely. We greatly appreciate it. Once again, for the NBA Rundown, I am Dave Dubois, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.
This is Phoenix.